How do martial arts and theology relate? While the two don't seem like they should mix, one principle does translate fairly well from martial arts to theology, and that is the pursuit of the truth. As a martial artist, my goal is to find the direct and clear answer to defeat an opponent. It doesn't really matter what my opinion is on a particular technique, because if it is not used in practice against a resisting trained individual, it most likely won't work. I see this very common amongst traditional martial artists, who cling to this idea that techniques they have trained in their katas/pumse/forms somehow work in an environment with more open rules like kickboxing or MMA. As I study the life of the Catholic samurai Dom Justo Takayama Ukon, I wondered why he clung so tightly to Christianity, even to the point of becoming a martyr. I think it's because as a martial artist searching for truth and technique, he also found truth in Jesus Christ. He had non-Christian upbringing, but when he was introduced to Catholicism, the conversion process was easier to comprehend for him. I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes through the Father except through me. John 14:6. This is also why, as Catholics, we don't reject philosophers like Aristotle or Plato just because they were pagan. In fact, St. Thomas Aquinas and St. Justin Martyr, who by the way was the St. Dom Justo picked as his patron, studied their ideas and saw that God planted the seeds of his wisdom to bring them closer to the ultimate truth, which is Christianity. They were looking for the Logos, which is Jesus. We live in a world where things get more and more subjective rather than objective. It's all about how you feel rather than what's actually reality. The reason why I think I was drawn to Catholicism as a martial artist is because of the pursuit of truth. No hiding flaws, no embellishing, just straight up historical data and teaching stemming from the historical Jesus Christ. The history of the Church literally starts in 33 AD, and we have documents going back as far as the first bishops, like St. Polycarp and Ignatius of Antioch, who were students of the apostles themselves. And the Bible was composed and put together into the Latin Vulgate from the Greek by St. Jerome in the 300s. And yes, there were bad popes, but also great ones. Yes, there was corruption, but we are all sinners. It's like listening to a violinist play Bach, and then when the violinist plays it poorly, you blame Bach instead of the person performing Bach. Jesus taught the apostles and gave them authority over unclean spirits, forgiving sins, and passing it down to the next generation. By blaming the church itself for bad leadership is to blame Christ for giving his apostles that mission of establishing his church. Why do you think Jesus picked Peter, the one who struck the ear of the slave, and also denied our Lord 3 times? As I searched for truth, I couldn't reconcile why there were so many different denominations and churches. Yet Christ said he came to establish the one church, not several. So I did research and found these. If you are a Lutheran, your church was founded by Martin Luther, an ex-monk of the Catholic Church, in the year 1517. If you belong to the Church of England, your church was founded by King Henry VIII in the year 1534, because the Pope would not grant him a divorce with the right to remarry. If you are a Presbyterian, your church was founded by John Knox in Scotland in the year 1560, influenced by John Calvin. If you are an Episcopalian, your church was an offshoot of the Church of England founded by Samuel Seabury in the American colonies in the 17th century. If you are a Congregationalist, your church was originated by Robert Brown in Holland in 1582. If you are a Methodist, your church was launched by John and Charles Wesley in England in 1744. If you are a Unitarian, Theophilus Lindley founded your church in London in 1774. If you are a Mormon, Latter-day Saints, Joseph Smith started your sect in Palmyra, New York, in 1829. If you are a Baptist, you owe the tenets of your faith to John Smith, who launched it in Amsterdam in 1605. If you are of the Dutch Reformed Church, you recognize Michaelis Jones as founder, because he originated your church in New York in 1628. If you worship with the Salvation Army, your sect began with William Booth in London in 1865. If you are a Christian Scientist, you look to 1879 as the year in which your religion was born, and to Mrs. Mary Baker Eddy as its founder. If you belong to one of the religious organizations known as Church of the Nazarene, Pentecostal Gospel, Holiness Church, Jehovah's Witnesses, Church of God, your church is one of the hundreds of new sects founded by men within the past century. I know for me, whenever I distort truth to fit my own personal needs, especially when it comes to sin, I find that I become jaded on wanting to believe the truth. I had to honestly ask myself why I didn't like certain teachings on the Catholic Church, and it boiled down to not willing to temper my desires and to fight my own concupiscence. I had sins that I held on to and didn't want to let go. I wanted to compromise. But if I'm going to stay consistent like the way I feel about martial arts, I realized that I had to accept what Christ taught and the authority he established. But at the end of the day, just like there are objectively speaking correct martial art techniques that have been tested and proven in high-stress environments, competition, there are foundations for belief that have stood the test of time. And Jesus answered him, "Blessed are you, Simon Bar-Jonah, for flesh and blood has not revealed this to you, but my Father who is in heaven." 18. And I tell you, you are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it. 19. I will give you the keys of the kingdom of heaven, and whatever you bind on earth shall be bound in heaven, and whatever you loose on earth shall be loosed in heaven. Matthew 16:17. 19.